I came home that Friday night earlier than anyone expected. It was one of those evenings where the sky looked heavy, half asleep, like even the world wanted to call it a day. My dad was out of town for a work conference, so the house was supposed to be empty. But when I opened the door, it felt different. Quiet, yes, but not the kind of quiet that feels peaceful. It was the kind that hums under your skin. Rachel, my stepmother, opened the door before I could even grab the handle. She was standing there in a silk robe, the kind that caught the light in soft waves. Her hair was pinned up loosely, and her face, she looked surprised, but not unhappy. "You didn't say you were coming home," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It was kind of a last-minute thing," I told her, dropping my bag by the door. "Just needed a break from campus." She nodded, her smile softening. "Well, you're here now." Without asking, she poured me a glass of wine, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then she sighed and mentioned that her friends were supposed to come over for a girls' night, but they'd canceled. "Guess it's just me tonight," she said, then glanced at me. "Well, us now, I suppose." There was something about the way she said it. Light, teasing but with a small pause in between, like she was testing how it sounded out loud. I noticed then that she wasn't dressed for an ordinary night in. Beneath the silk robe was a dark dress, tight, low, deliberate. Her makeup was more than usual, her hair just a bit too perfect for a night alone, and when she saw my eyes flicker, she caught it. She didn't seem embarrassed. If anything, she adjusted the strap on her shoulder like she wanted to be noticed. I felt out of place, like I'd walked into a moment that wasn't mine. We moved to the living room. The lights were dim, the kind of warm glow that makes shadows feel alive. She turned on some slow music in the background, something jazzy and quiet. "Well," she said, settling onto the couch with her wine. "Might as well enjoy the night, right?" She refilled my glass before I even finished the first one. Her eyes met mine for a second longer than they needed to. The wine warmed me, or maybe it was the atmosphere. Everything felt slower, looser. We talked about campus life, about how fast time was moving, how everything felt temporary these days. She leaned back, one leg crossed over the other, her robe parting just slightly as she moved. "You remind me of your father sometimes," she said, swirling her glass lazily. Then after a beat she added, "But not entirely." I laughed quietly, not knowing what to say. She asked if I was seeing anyone. I shook my head. She smiled, a small, knowing kind of smile. "Smart," she said. "Most people just bring trouble anyway." There was a silence after that. Not awkward, but charged. Her hand brushed against my knee as she reached for the bottle, and for a moment it stayed there. My chest tightened. "You've grown up," she said quietly, her voice lower now. "You really have." There was something in the way she said it that made the air feel heavier. I tried to find words, but before I could, she stood up and walked toward the speaker, her hips moving slightly with the rhythm of the music. "Dance with me," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I hesitated. She didn't wait. She just took my hand. Her fingers were warm, soft, and steady. I could have pulled away, but I didn't. The music was slow, almost hypnotic. She leaned close, her head near my shoulder. Her perfume, something floral, something faintly sweet, filled the space between us. Then she looked up at me, her eyes unreadable. And before I could think, her lips brushed mine, soft, uncertain, like she was testing a boundary neither of us should cross. I froze. But I didn't move. Her hand slid behind my neck, pulling me just slightly closer. The kiss deepened, not rushed, not clumsy, controlled, like it was something she'd thought about before this night. And in that moment, I stopped trying to think. Every part of me knew it was wrong, but her touch, the way she moved, the way her voice trembled when she whispered my name, it made it impossible to stop. She pulled back just enough to look at me. Her eyes searched mine. "Tell me to stop," she whispered. But I didn't. I couldn't. Her fingers traced my skin like she already knew how I'd react. I stopped thinking about what it meant, about what it could destroy. In that moment, it wasn't about logic. It was just heat, breath, and silence. Time disappeared. The night blurred, and when it was over, neither of us said a word. The silence that followed was louder than anything that had happened. She sat there still, her breathing slowing. Then, without looking at me, she said quietly, "This never happened." I didn't answer. What was there to say? The next morning, the house felt colder. The sunlight hit the kitchen in that sharp, too bright way that makes everything feel exposed. She was already there, dressed neatly, her expression blank. "Coffee was on the table. Sleep okay?" she asked, her tone casual, distant. "Yeah," I said. That was it. No mention of the night before. No extra glance. Just the rhythm of normal life pretending nothing had cracked. My phone buzzed. It was Dad. He said his flight got delayed. He'd be gone another day. I stared at the message for a long time, not sure whether I should feel relieved or sick. "You heading back to campus today?" she asked, not looking up from her cup. "Yeah," I said. I hadn't planned to. But now staying felt impossible. She nodded. "I packed you some leftovers." She handed me a small paper bag, as if everything between us had reset to ordinary. When I reached for it, her hand brushed mine. She paused, then leaned in and kissed my cheek softly. "Be safe," she whispered. Then quieter, "All right," I nodded. That was all I could manage. On the drive back, the radio played, but I didn't hear a single song. My mind replayed every second of the night before. The way she looked at me, the things she didn't say, the words I should have spoken but didn't. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sure what I was. Part of me wanted to blame her. Another part knew I couldn't. Some nights, even now, I still see her face in my dreams, her voice echoing through the silence, her eyes asking a question I never answered. And every time I wake up, I find myself staring into the dark, whispering the same thing to myself. Why didn't I say no?